Hi you guys, it's your boy Davian. Welcome to another episode of Conscious TV, and we're going to talk about some spiritual things. If you guys are interested, then stay tuned. So I decided to make this video because I was just in a place where I've been having a lot of really incredible experiences with God, and I wanted to share those experiences because spirituality is a huge part of my channel and why I chose to create a YouTube in the first place. It was to put out my artistic content as well as to talk about spirituality, healing, and all of those things that I think have to do with what we are really dealing with and going through as human beings. I live a very contemplative life. I'm an empath, which simply means that I just have the ability to really receive stimulants and data and information in ways that really activate me emotionally, and they really activate other sensory abilities that we all have as human beings. I know we all only give an account for the 5 senses: taste, touch, hearing, seeing, but we have 6, 7, 8, 9 different senses, and we call those the psychic senses. And with me being a very intuitive person, I'm constantly experiencing energies and people and reality that I have to really process, or else it'll really overwhelm me and I'll find myself in a very dark place. So I have to process my own life, and I also have to process the lives and the energies and the states of consciousness that my clients are in, because I do spiritual advising. Meditation is a huge part of my life, and one of the benefits of meditation is not only does it regulate your mental state, and it kind of rebalances those chemicals and hormones and adrenaline that's responsible for a lot of overactiveness in the brain, but it also opens you up to a lot of transcendental experiences. And so oftentimes when I am doing transcendental meditation, I have astral projection experiences, which are experiences where my consciousness perceivably separates from my physical body, and I have experiences beyond this physical plane of existence. And once again, these are not gifts, these are experiences that we all can have, and there are techniques and methods that can induce out-of-body experiences, and that can expand one's consciousness and one's experience of one's own consciousness. I actually have 2 videos on astral projection. I'll leave them in the description bar as well if you guys are interested. But nonetheless, I've been deeply meditating over the past few weeks. And a week before last, I had an experience where I had laid down to go to bed, and at some point in between falling asleep and becoming aware, I had entered into sleep paralysis, and I decided to go with the experience by just simply letting go. And I found myself traveling through this space, and then there was just perfect stillness. And as I sat in that stillness, I began to focus on visually activating my spiritual eye, and so I was commanding sight. I found myself in what appeared to be an abandoned building, and there was a choir in front of me, and it was a mixed race choir, mostly made up of young men, and matter of fact, all men. And there was a hole in the ceiling above these young men, and they were singing the song, and I cannot explain to you the way that that song vibrated and reverberated and absolutely just harmonized my spirit. There was a deep emotional response from my spiritual body to the song, and they were just singing and singing, and it felt like I could feel all the feelings that existed in reality that were of a loving and positive vibration. There was this deep consuming sense of love, and I just remember being spellbinded by the song that my spirit was receiving. And as I looked on at this choir, and I'm kind of now caught up in the rapture of the song, and I'm brought to my knees, and I feel like I'm crying, but it's like tears of joy, it's tears of ecstasy. the hole that was in the ceiling above them began to glow, and this white light began to illuminate the entire space. And before you know it, I was snapped back to my body. And when I came back to my body, I was so engulfed in that experience that literally when I woke up physically, I woke up like like it was like all the it's like all my consciousness was being pumped back into my body, back into my lungs. Moses had an encounter of the song of the Lord, and another biblical figure had an encounter of the song of the Lord. But it is the song that literally is sung by God throughout the spiritual universe. And sometimes when you are psychically sensitive, you can hear this melody. If you guys study spiritual phenomena, you know that people have heard what they perceive to be a choir of angels singing. People would be at work, our children would be in school, and they would report the phenomenon of hearing a choir powerfully sing. And there is no choir. There is nobody who's physically singing. And this phenomenon has been reported since literally the dawn of time. Even though I could not recite the song when I woke up, I have no idea how the song goes. I couldn't sing the song to you. I don't know the words of the song. But as soon as I woke up, even though I had no memory of what the song literally sounded like, I could feel the song still in my body. I could feel the emotions from the song. I could feel the synergy and the flow of the song just traveling through my physical body. That song was still with me, and that song stayed with me. Back in elementary school, I was a 5th grader, and my teacher was Mr. Martindale, and we were actually having a pizza party, and we had our party. We were cleaning up the classroom, and we had a window that was open to the right of me, and I began to hear what sounded like a choir just belting the song. And it was so loud and so obvious and literal that I went over to the window to look out to maybe, because we was on the 2nd floor of the schoolhouse, to see if maybe some people had galvanized below and were singing. There was nobody outside. And I actually called some of my friends over and I said, do you guys hear the song that's being sung? People were like, no, we don't hear anything. I even called my teacher over, Mr. Martindale. I said, I hear singing. Do you hear singing? He didn't hear anything. And I just literally stood there. I could hear the song being sung in the atmosphere. And I was the only person as a 5th grader who could hear the song. And so when I heard the song in my astral encounter, I think that's why it felt familiar. I had encountered the song before. I felt like I knew the song. And it wasn't until I came back from that experience that I realized that I had heard back as a child. And so many of the prophets and mystics of past days have displayed feats of power and supernatural phenomenon and miracles and healing because they expanded and shifted their consciousness to this God consciousness, which superpowered their natural perception, their natural ability, and their natural effect on the natural world. So that astral experience was followed by an encounter that I had last week that led to this week's experience as well. Last week, one of my friends came up to visit. He was here for 3 days. And this particular friend, he's one of my straight friends. He's like a really simple guy. He's just down to have a good time, very cool. He's not a super spiritual person. He doesn't really talk God. We don't really have those type of conversations. And he came to my house Tuesday night and he was like, man, I just want to tell you God loves you. And I remember vividly thinking how strange it felt for him to tell me that God loved me, because that's out of his character. He does not speak about God. He's not an evangelist. He's not even a Christian. He's a Buddhist, which means that he has a very impersonal perception of God. He doesn't even see God as like a personable being. I just thought it was so strange that he said, God loves you. And he was like, so do I. To hear it from him was just odd. And the next day, that Wednesday, I was looking through some of my things and I found a old fortune cookie, because anytime I go out to like a Chinese buffet or a Chinese restaurant, I always get a fortune cookie and I always keep my fortunes. So this was a very old fortune cookie, but it said, God loves you, and you have immense fortune in your future. And I just remember sitting there looking at this fortune cookie thinking, wow, like this is really ironic. And I don't believe in irony. I don't believe in coincidence. I'm a law of attraction type of guy. So I know that everything happens intentionally and with purpose in the universe. I find this fortune cookie. What the hell is going on? I was like, okay, God is aware of me. God is making me aware that it's aware of me. Through speaking through my friend as a vessel, as an evangelist, through me finding this fortune cookie. That Thursday, I was taking a nap, and I remember being snatched from my body once again, and I don't recall seeing anything. I don't recall hearing anything, but what I can tell you I felt was beyond measure. It was, once again, that unconditional, almost unbearable sense of unconditional love. And it was so thick, so objective, so leathery, it was so dense that you could literally take this love and you could put it in your hand and you could feel it and see it. Like, it was that thick of a matter. Like, this love was just consuming. And I just remember it bringing me to my spiritual knees. And once again, I woke up crying, bawling, crying, because this love was otherworldly. It was otherworldly. And God's love is not like the love of your mother, or the love you have for your children, or the love that your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or girlfriend has for you. This is supernatural in nature. This love transcends all of that love times 10 billion. God's love is the height and the epitome of what the love phenomenon is in all of its forms. Platonic, romantic, sexual. It's a spiritual orgasm, and it stirs you, and it moves you, and it pulls on you, and it thrashes you about, and it's just a very overwhelming sense and degree of this phenomenal God force that is holding each and every single one of us as a object of attention and as an object of affection. Spiritual experiences can have a deeply profound impact on your psychology. If you want to get into experiencing God beyond intellect and beyond human emotions, then you definitely need to get under some tutelage and make sure that you have somebody in your life who is well versed and well seasoned in spiritual matters, in spiritual phenomenon. But developing our spiritual ability and our spiritual senses is so necessary. What I felt in both of these occurrences over the past 2 weeks is something that every human being deserves to feel. It is one thing to read about God's love. It's another thing for somebody to talk to you about God's love. But it is a whole nother thing for you to have a visceral, direct encounter, for you to have a head-on collision with the love of God. It is mind-blowing. This transcends denomination. It transcends sexuality. It transcends color, ethnicity. It transcends persons of all different social classes and walks of life. We're talking about what the very fabric of our existence is made of, which is this image, this property of God that molds itself into the personalities that we identify as our individual selves. I always look at human beings as God asleep, and those who are spiritual and those who become aware become God awake, and those who do not live out of that higher self are just God asleep. But nonetheless, we're all gods. And the infamous words of Jesus, ye are gods. And Jesus came, like all the rest of the mystics, to awaken us to this God force, to this relationship, to this intimacy, to this connectivity, to give us access to parts of our consciousness that bigotry doesn't allow, that racism doesn't allow, that egotism doesn't allow, that materialism doesn't allow. Man cannot live off bread alone and truly know who and what he is inside and out. And so spirituality is that investigation of the internalized self, the self that you don't see, that is existing on a vast spectrum. And strengthening our association to that spectrum increases our cognitive ability. It increases our mental and emotional health. And I just want to encourage those of you who are on spiritual journeys to continue on in your spiritual journey. You're going to come to see that your life is more spiritual than it is natural. And you're going to have a lot more spiritual experiences here than you are having natural experiences, because you are more spiritual by nature than you are physical. Have you guys ever experienced the song of the Lord? I know God sung to the Israelites when they were freed from Egypt and they were out in the wilderness. I was always curious about what that experience was, to hear God singing. Now that I've had 3 experiences of it myself, my edges are completely snatched. Tell me what you guys' experiences are. Make sure that you guys share, rate, comment, hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you guys later.